Welcome to the third episode of StreamCast with me, James Rutherford, also known as Charizard James on Twitch and other social media platforms, where we take a deep dive into the lives of all your favorite streamers and content creators. Joined with us today is variety speedrunner ShiningEspeon. Take a minute to introduce yourself.
Hello, friends. So I'm Kara, also known as ShiningEspeon, and yeah, I mean James already stole like half things I was gonna say, but I am I run a speedrun focused stream. I call myself a variety speedrunner for we'll talk about that more. But yeah, mostly that's it. You can call me. I like being called just Kara. You can call me Espeon. You can call me any variation of my name. All that's good as long as you spam all my emotes in chat when you do.
All right, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Why do you call yourself a variety speedrunner?
Okay, so it's basically my channel is focused a lot more on learning the basics of speedruns than grinding to be like the very top of the leaderboard. I have tremendous respect for these people who push for world records. I have a lot of friends who have world records in their community. But personally, I like the idea of focusing on entry level speedrunning, learning the basics, getting a degree of consistency, and then once I kind of feel like I can do a run competently, I like kind of jumping around to learn a new run. I like focusing on the process specifically of like jumping into a speed run, learning how to get started. I kind of consider myself like an entry level speedrun streamer.
With entry level speedrunning, it makes sense for you to be a front runner in if you want to learn stream running, speed running. You're who we need to go to. I don't
That's
think
definitely
there's
what I aspire to be.
I don't know a lot about speed running, but I do know that if I wanted to learn how to speed run, I would be watching a lot of YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, or watching streams about people that are specifically in the market for I want to teach you how to speed run. And I don't think there's a lot of that. What do you think?
I think that there's a lot of like tutorials that are kind of in their own specific communities that tell you how to learn like individual strats and tell you how to kind of walk you through a run. But personally, the reason that I kind of wanted to do this was because I've been interested in speedrunning for a long time. I mean, I've probably even before I first discovered GDQ almost a decade ago, but especially when I started watching GDQ, that kind of ignited a more focused interest in it. I wanted to kind of learn more about speedrunning. I kind of wanted to learn about it myself, but I personally found it really overwhelming trying to like get off the ground for speedrunning. I I would watch runs that were done by the very best runners, and they were very heavily optimized. And even people made mistakes. These are people who have been doing this 1,000 times and still have it fairly ironed out. And it's really intimidating going from watching that to starting a game for the first time and you don't even know what you're doing. And it makes speedrunning seem a lot more accessible than I've come to find that it is personally. Um, and I just kind of wanted to, I don't know, I really want to focus on the accessibility of speedrunning. And I'm not necessarily the singular person who does that. Like I said, lots of people make a lot of good resources for the community for people starting out. Um, I kind of want to take a big picture focus on like um how to get into speedrunning as a whole, kind of regardless of what your game of choice is.
It's very rewarding trying knowing that someone's watching your stream and gets to learn a specific game just because they watch you, which is really rewarding experience. And like you said, there's not a lot of there's some maybe some people in specific niche communities or niche communities that do this type of thing. But I'm excited that you have decided to take on this role in the speedrunning community. And for those of you on the listening right now on the podcast that don't know this, I actually know ShiningEspeon personally outside of the internet. We have spent some time playing various card games together, and it's been very it's been very rewarding getting to see the transformation in the life, and going from playing card games to going to being really excited about this card game, then being really excited about this. It's just like a constant circulation of excitement, and that's one of the things I really like about ShiningEspeon the most. Is when she goes for it, when she has an idea, it's all in. It's like very similar to me. When I have an idea about something and I want to start something, I just go all in on that thing, and I just kind of don't look back until I go to the next thing. But let's go ahead and start from the beginning. What is your streaming? What, just from the beginning of you streaming specifically? What is your story from when you started streaming until now?
So I've actually really wanted to stream for a long time. I've really like, I have a lot of interests, and I've been really drawn to the idea of content creation. And I for again close to a decade, I wanted to produce some kind of content. Actually, in 2016, I partnered with a Pokemon TCG team, so I could make videos focusing on retro Pokemon content, which was a community that I've really been spent a lot of time in. Um, the retro Pokemon TCG community, and I made some videos with them talking about decks of the era, and kind of commentating live matches and everything. But then I was still at the mercy of someone else's time, someone else's setup, and it took me a long time to get to this point because I just didn't really have access to the setup I needed to stream. Um, and a big thing that got me off the ground actually is it's just offhand. Actually, in your chat, James, I someone mentioned offhand that you could stream straight off the PS4, just using the share button, which is a button right there on the controller that's label, but God knows I never pressed it for in my life. Whoops. Um, and so I just started, and this was just like in what, October, I think, like early October of 2020. I started streaming just like whatever I was doing at the time for a couple friends who wanted to watch, and then that kind of that combined with one other thing that I'll talk about in a minute, reignited my speedrunning interest once again, and finally I had an opportunity to actually like stream it and talk about it, and focus on it a lot more, and I just did immediately. But I still didn't have a setup. I didn't have a proper computer, so I could do this through like an OBS. I didn't have a camera or a mic. I didn't even have good internet. Uh, my upload speed was so bad. Like I look at my old videos, and they're like 11 frames per second or something ridiculous. But I had something to get me off to get me off the ground, and I made a Discord, and I invited people into Discord, and they could join like a Discord call so I could talk about the games while I was playing, and just have some semblance of commentary over them. And um somebody took notice of that and had a conversation with me about what my goal was for the stream, and believed in it enough that he wanted to like essentially sponsor me to get off the ground, and sponsored me to have a whole setup so I can do all the stuff I'm doing right now. So I can have a proper PC to use for streaming. I can have like a camera and a mic and everything. And now here we are. This is basically my second month streaming with a full setup. We're just kind of getting into the beginning of my second month, but that's how I've gotten to here so far. I spent a lot of time wanting to do this. Then I had found an opportunity to do it within the very limited means that I had, and the right person found out about it and offered to kind of springboard me.
That's awesome. The opportunity like that is such a huge deal, especially when you don't have the setup that you want. Um,
Oh, it's tremendous.
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, talk about your name, Shining Espeon. How did you figure out that you wanted to be called that?
So my favorite Pokemon is Espeon. You might even notice. Got my friend right here.
Tattoo on the arm
Um,
there.
that was my first of 8 tattoos. My favorite Pokemon's been Espeon for a long time, ever since I played Silver version in like 2000, and I wanted a Psychic type, and so I evolved my Eevee into an Espeon so I could have a good Psychic type for my team for the Elite Four. And I liked Espeon because Espeon could learn Bite, which at the time was a special move, so it could deal with other Dark types, or I'm sorry, other Psychic types, and also Ghost types that were all weak to Dark moves. And considering that had a high special attack and it was fast, that made it, at least in game for a 10-year-old, like just like a good counter to everything else. And I felt like Galaxy Brain Kara for coming up with that. And Espeon just very very quickly stuck and became my favorite Pokemon. And so when I wanted to have like a kind of like a an online handle, as a longtime Pokemon fan, I wanted to have something Espeon related, and it's actually funny. I kind of prefer just the base purple Espeon to the green shiny Espeon, but like obviously I can't just call myself Espeon, and Espeon with some numbers after it doesn't have the same ring, so I needed some kind of adjective in there, and Shining was available, so I went with it. And so in the game in the video game they're typically called shiny Pokemon, but in a lot in the TCG there are like shiny Pokemon cards that have the prefix Shining. Like the first one was Shining Magikarp from Neo Revelation. Um, and so there's a whole history of shiny Pokemon being having the name Shining in the TCG. So it kind of has it still a solid connection to like the Pokemon background that I kind of came up on.
And I like that it's something we have in common as well. You're Shining Espeon, and I'm Charizard James. So we
Absolutely.
we're both
Poke Gang,
Pokemon.
rise up.
Yes, there's a huge surge of Pokemon even right now to this day. From Pokemon's just been extremely popular throughout my entire life. Me being born in 1992, it's been a huge part of my life ever since I was 4 or 5 years old. Ever since I can remember playing Red version and thinking Rattata was the best Pokemon.
You were a red version fan?
100%.
James.
There's a
No, it's
chart.
all about blue version. I'm sorry.
You can't get better than Charizard on the front of the game.
Look, you can get Charizard in either game, but blue version had Meowth in it, and Meowth, I don't know if you know this, is a cute little kitty cat. And unironically, that was 100% what made me decide on blue versus red when I went into Toys R Us when I was like 8 years old to choose a game.
Wow. No,
Meowth's a cute little kitty cat.
for me, for me, when I first started playing the game, I don't know how old I was, very young. I thought Rattata when Rattata learned Hyper Fang was the best move on Earth. So I spammed that thing. I got a critical hit a lot, and I quickly realized that wasn't the best thing I could be doing. But I digress. Uh, speaking about not just Pokemon, but how did you get into gaming in general? How did you first get into it? The first time gaming was presented to you, how did that happen, and how did that lead up to today? Whether you're card games and getting into speedrunning and things like that.
I mean, the reality of the situation is like I grew up in the early 90s. I was born in 1990, which makes me yikes years old. But like so I was around video games before I even had like enough like memory to recognize this as like my first. They were just always kind of there, like friends or relatives. So if they had an NES or a Super NES. But I can say the first console I ever got, which I believe would happen when I was 5 years old, was um, was a Super NES in 1995, and I'm not 100% sure. That's just kind of like my own rough estimate. But my very first game was the SNES the SNES version of Pagemaster, which was an old like early 90s movie. Look that game up. It is a game that exists, but that was my first ever game for some reason. Um,
Tell me about Pagemaster.
oh
What was it
God,
about?
I don't know. It's just one of those like jank like early '90s SNES platformers. They were a dime a dozen then because platformers were like the thing to be doing in video games. You run, you jump, you can get various power ups. I don't know if you saw the movie or anything, but like, um, the premise of the movie is like a kid goes into a library and gets sucked into the worlds of the books. And I mean, I'm, you know, uh, being a little bit reductive. I don't remember that movie. It's been like 20-ish years since I've seen it. Whatever. But it's just a kind of generic platformer. You run around, you get power ups to help you run and jump faster. You get a power up that lets you shoot a little projectile. Like Mario has his fireballs. The Pagemaster kid, whose name I don't know, of course not, got a bag of gooey eyeballs.
Wow.
And then there was another power up that let you stick to ceilings and go kind of hand over hand across the ceiling. But I don't know, it wasn't a very good game, but it had a very distinct aesthetic. I'll give it that.
Have we found your next speedrun game?
Oh God. Can you the amount of work that it would take, I'd have to like dig out my old SNES and copy the game, get a capture card that's compatible with it. I might need like a CRT TV to hook up to this whole setup. And all this to play Pagemaster. Like there's a reason I haven't played that game in like 20 years.
Well, when you put in the effort, you get the reward. You might be the number one page
Look,
master
the reward here
streamer.
is again Pagemaster for SNES. Like, hey, if you finish finish cleaning out the gutters, you get to take out the garbage too. Like, yay.
So transitioning from that game in the world back in the early '90s, how did you first get into card games? Because I know that's how I met you. But how did you first get into that?
I got into card games the same way a lot of people did in my age group. Pokemon TCG. I first discovered Pokemon TCG in, I don't know, I want to say maybe like early '99. Um, I remember as a gift for Easter that year, I got the like the intro starter deck. They had like the 230 card decks with the Hollow Machamp and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I got that for Easter, and I got into that from there. And like a lot of people my age, I didn't really play the game too much. I mostly collected, but I was into it for a while because it was the biggest thing in the entire world. Um, oh, excuse me. And then like um eventually I kind of moved on to other things because I was, a preteen. And then I discovered Yu-Gi-Oh, which was the first time I got into a card game as like an actual like player, not just a collector. And I actually stuck with that game for a good bit. And actually started to like get decent at it. And then there was a long hiatus. I think for like 2006 to 2013. I didn't really touch card games. I just had other interests, mostly music, and then like I ended up going to university and I got very sucked up in what I was studying. Um, but then 2013, I had a sudden nostalgic burst of interest in Pokemon TCG, and I started playing it again, and I kind of got all this momentum going. I've been playing TCGs fairly regularly since then. I started playing Pokemon again, competing seriously. A couple years later, I needed a distraction from Pokemon, so I got into Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's where I met your brother. Um, and then I kept playing Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon kind of interchangeably for a while, and then 2019, my my now ex got me into Magic. And yeah, I've been bouncing around card games ever since. I've dabbled in some other ones along the way. I tried very sincerely on two separate occasions to make Force of Will work, and it didn't work. My God, I wanted it to work.
I remember when I saw you in the card shop, uh,
Oh God.
selling out into Force of Will, basically. And you
Yeah.
said it was the best game and everything. And then I think it was a couple weeks later, maybe it was a month, maybe it was shorter than that. I didn't see you. I don't think I've ever seen you actually play the game. I knew you bought the
I have never
cards.
been to a Force of Will locals in my life.
I remember. I think you said something along the lines of I'm getting ready to make a really bad decision when you're about to
Yes.
buy the cards.
Yes, that was the second time I got into the game after I learned my lesson the first time. But I had like one friend who was very like seriously like into it and was like big in the competitive scene, and the game is cool. Was cool. It still technically exists, but it's a very small community. But the game was cool. I liked it a lot. I was a big fan. I believed in it, but it did not get the traction it needed to really get off the ground, at least consistently in the US.
Did you start speedrunning from the desire to play a Pokemon game? Did you ever speedrun a Pokemon game, or how did you desire at first to start being a speedrunner?
Um, Mostly, I mean, anyone who's enough of a fan of a video game, uh, will have that natural desire to be like, okay, I'm really good at this game. I bet I could beat this game. I bet I could beat this game in like one day, stuff like that. I remember a journal assignment in second grade. My favorite game, at the time and to this day, was Donkey Kong Country 2, the best platformer ever made. Um, if you have a different favorite platformer, that's fine too. You're wrong. It's cool. Anyway, and I think the journal assignment in second grade was, what is something that you can do in 1 minute? And I'm like, I can beat the first level of Donkey Kong Country 2 in 1 minute. I think I also said that I could get the two bonuses in that level, and I'm not even sure that's possible, but it might be. I should actually sit down and time it sometime, being a speedrunner. But I guess that was like I don't think about that very often. I guess that was the first brush for with anything resembling speedrunning. Although I did I obviously there was no centralized speedrunning community then. This was in 1997. Um, but um, the first time I really had like a lot of like pointed interest in speedrunning, like I said, was when I discovered GDQ in I want to say 2013, I think it was. Like it was like SGDQ 2013. I might be wrong about that. It might have been 2014, but it was definitely around that time.
So, assuming you had the limited experience you had in 1997 playing Donkey Kong Country speedruns, if you can finish it in a minute, um, how do you think that transitions from helping people get started streaming as a speedrunner in the streaming platform in general, just to get started?
Um, I guess the fundamental connection there is, the reason that I had this idea in my head, I can beat this level 100% in 1 minute, was because it was a game that I knew really well, and I knew it really well because I played it a lot, and I played it a lot because I liked it a lot. And that was a fundamental idea, that innate familiarity you get with a game that you really love and just play a lot because you love it. That's a and I'm sure at some point we'll talk in greater depth about like my advice in jumping into speedrunning, but that was a big thing. Like it came from just a an easy familiarity you get with a game that you love a lot.
We can actually talk about that right now if you'd like. Stemming from the familiarity of a game and you really like it and you want to do it faster, how does that snowball into actually wanting to stream it?
Well, I mean, if I'm gonna kind of answer a tangential question.
Sure.
Because the big thing that kind of springboards off of that is, um, I've had a couple people who watch my stream ask me how to start speedrunning, and I've had this conversation in other speedrunners chats as well. And the two big pieces of advice that I have for getting into speedrunning, just the bare minimum, is find a game that you like a lot. I mean, this everyone will tell you this, but you have to like the game a lot, because if you're going to be speedrunning it, you're going to be playing it a lot, and it has to be a game that you're not going to like get just super burned out on in the first 10 reps you do of it. So find a game you like a lot, and um, then just like sit down and try to play it as fast as you can. And it helps to have a timer because a timer kind of puts a little extra layer of like motivation on it. But fundamentally, if you want to get into speedrunning, take a game you know real well, sit down, try to beat it in one sitting as fast as possible. That's it. When you do that, you've done a speedrun. And then from there, it's about um, learning strats and optimizing and improving. But the best way to get into speedrunning, I think, and I believe this wholeheartedly, this is like the one of the founding principles of my whole stream, is start by doing a run and finish a run, and then learn as you go and incorporate that into runs. But I just think the big thing is focus on just completing runs first and foremost. Some people will tell you if you want to learn a speed run, watch strats, try to learn this strat first, and then move on, learn a second strat. And I guess if you are not familiar with the speedrunning community, a strat is just a shorthand for like a strategy used to get through a boss encounter or just a segment of the game. Just typically a strat refers to like a strategy used to get through a section quickly.
Is there something
But
that you don't like about the speedrunning process and getting to learn about streaming or speedrunning?
you let me just finish the thought that I had, and I'll jump on that real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing, a lot of people will say, start by watching other people's speed runs and try to imitate it and practice until you learn it, and kind of go strat by strat by strat until you kind of have at least a basic grasp on things, and then try to do a full run. And I think the absolute opposite. I think that's a really, I think that approach can turn a lot of people off. Um, I think the best way to get into speedrunning is just to complete a run as best you can, improvise as much as possible, fail, get up, keep going, and just push. Just keep doing runs, and you've done a couple runs. Okay, how can I improve this one section, and then work on that. But focus on continuing to just do runs, because then that also builds up an easy like intuition with playing the game quickly, and things that can pop up, and also just you get a hit of serotonin from finishing a game. Like I don't even can't tell you how many times I've finished Kingdom Hearts at this point. But even when I'm finishing like a run that I'm pretty frustrated with, like it feels good landing that final hit on Ansem 4, like no matter what. So it's a more immediately rewarding way to get into speedrunning, and I think that's a very like beginner friendly approach.
I
And
think
I
I
guess you
think
were saying, what's the thing you don't like about speedrun community? And I don't know if I dislike anything in particular, but that was certainly an issue that I had. Um the kind of quiet inaccessibility of feeling pressured to learn all these strats before I could do a run.
mm-hmm.
And that was a self-imposed pressure. I just wanted to do it well, I was just being a perfectionist. But that was something that was a challenging hurdle to get past, and I only got past it by saying, okay, fuck it. I'm just gonna do a run, and it's gonna be bad, but it's gonna be mine, and then I'll make it better.
So it's basically just a personal anxiety that you put on yourself about that situation, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I have ADHD, and I can absolutely get like wrapped up in hyper focusing on how I should be doing things, and I just get kind of like frozen from uh all of that. Um and just sitting down and saying, okay, I'm just gonna complete this game today helped a lot.
So I want to start talking about something that's really important to you and really important to me as well. Talk about what the LGBTQ community means to you and how you can incorporate that in your streams if you do, and just talk about your overall experience with that.
Well, okay, so I'm an openly queer streamer. It says in my Twitch profile, it says in my Twitter, I'm non-binary lesbian. That's what I call myself. You can see, I mean, I embrace that fairly openly in my streams. I mean, you can see my background. I have two different pride flags going on behind me. I put those facts with myself front and center on my profiles. And I just try to kind of exist openly as a queer streamer and create an environment where uh, queer people can show up and just kind of be in a like a familiar, welcoming space. I mean, oops, there we go. Kick something on the floor. Whoops. Um, so yeah, I mean, I definitely focus. I definitely prioritize um LGBT viewers uh in building my stream audience. I don't want to. I want to create an environment that is explicitly um welcoming to them, because I think when I was growing up as you know a closeted queer person, I didn't have spaces like that, and the world's come a long way since then. And there's a lot more overtly, openly queer spaces, and I just want to be part of that. I want to contribute to that explicitly, uh, welcoming vibe.
I 100% agree with that, and I've been open about that as well, and especially getting to know you for the past 4.5 5 years has kind of opened my eyes more about being being open to um, the LGBTQ community, and welcoming them, and not shaming or not degrading or not doing anything like that about people that just grew up a different way than us or feel a different way than us, or it's not about looking at and looking through our own points of view. It's about looking through everyone else's point of view as well, you know.
I think that you have to be openly, explicitly welcoming. You can't
Mm-hmm.
just say everyone is welcome here. I think you have to be very explicit about this is an LGBT friendly space, because a lot of queer people they grow up hearing everyone is welcome, but they are taught through their experiences that that sometimes means everyone's welcome but not you. And so you have to say, if you want to make a welcome space, you have to say, we don't tolerate homophobia, we don't tolerate transphobia. This is a space for all genders, for all sexualities, for all people. And you've said explicitly, because that then queer people are they feel seen, they feel acknowledged, and they know it's actually a space where they're not going to be you know harassed just for existing as themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
People
huge.
who try to be neutral, it's not neutrality is not welcoming the same way that explicitly saying yes, you guys can come in.
That's actually a
So
huge
for
thing.
me, I make a welcoming space by being an openly queer person with pride flags in my background. But for other people who are maybe not as explicitly queer or are just cishet allies, like you gotta say very vocally, any chance you get, that you are explicitly here for the LGBT community, and say that like in your stream chat for the rules, say no homophobia, no transphobia allowed. Say those things explicitly. That will take a huge load of pressure off of potential viewers.
I think
And if someone
streamers
is
that
ever hostile in the chat, says something that's shitty, that's harmful, you got to shut it down. You got to address it, call it out.
Yeah, I think people that are just starting to stream, or maybe already streamers in general, just the streaming community, I think they really needed to hear that. That was a huge thing to talk about. And I know for me that I I was kind of under the impression, just looking inside of myself, that if you're welcoming a welcoming community to quote unquote everyone, it doesn't mean the same thing as we are openly welcoming the LGBT community. Those two things are different. In my head, those two things are the same. So, but it is very valuable for all streamers to know that point of view, and to know that we should be actively welcoming the LGBT community instead of saying we accept everyone.
Right. Yeah, you have to be you have to be willing to not just welcome but embrace that community.
Right, right, perfect. That's a huge thing that we should all take. That was really good. That we should all really take a deep look and learn from that. That was awesome. Um, is there something that nobody knows about that is a quirk about you that that might be shameful or something? But what's something weird or crazy or quirky that you do that no one really knows about?
Um, I don't know. I'm a quirky motherfucker in a lot of ways. I have a lot of weird interests and pet peeves. I mean, I'm enough of a I'm self-centered enough in that regard that that one of my channel points rewards is just a random hot take about me where I will just pop off about something that's on my mind or complain about something that bothers me for some length of time. It's just press the button and I'll rant about whatever. So like everyone's like a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'm I'm so weird, I'm so quirky, and I'm at least somewhat self-aware in that regard. So like I don't know off the top of my head like one particular thing, but there's lots of little silly things about me that are, you know, a little quirky. And off the top of my head, of course, I'm on the spot, blank. But you watch me stream, you'll see all sorts of things pretty quickly.
So I know something not to say is Jolteon is the best EV evolution. Just don't say that.
Jolteon Jolteon is a baby.
Jolteon's a baby. Nowhere near the power level of Espeon for sure, or cuteness level.
Espeon's also a baby. All evolutions are babies.
So there's no controversy between Espeon and other evolutions for you.
Controversy is that I don't have enough space in my arms to hug all of them at the same time. Um, Actually, on my on some social media accounts in December, you know how some places do like Pokemon profile picture month.
Hmm.
I used a picture of Jolteon that was I might you might have seen the picture already, James, but it had a burger photoshopped into its mouth.
I didn't see that.
Burger Jolteon. Burger Jolteon genuinely like I get emotional when I see Burger Jolteon. Like no, I have love for all evolutions, regardless of whether or not that they like burgers.
So chicken sandwiches are okay.
Chicken sandwiches are also okay.
Okay, so if there was a chicken there was a McChicken Flareon. How would that go? That would probably go over well.
Oh, I would be all about that. Yes, as long as baby doing a big old chomp, I'm here for it.
Okay. What are some of your non-gaming? We talked about your gaming interests and Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh. What are some of your non-gaming interests?
Um, Shit, who has time to do other things? I bounce around between interests because I have ADHD, and what the hyper focus goes where the hyper focus goes.
Hmm.
I I got my degrees. I have an undergraduate and master's degree in mathematics, and I bounce between like a super like intense focus on mathematics and just absolute complete like disgust with it because I'm burned out. Sometimes I'm like, yes, I want nothing more than to sit in on a topology class right now. Um, I Let's see, I'm just looking around my little my room to see things that I like. What do I like? Oh no.
So the answer is just nothing.
Um,
Gaming is life.
um, I so many things that I'm into fall under the gaming umbrella. Oh no.
You can say streaming.
Obviously. But what do I stream, James? What do I stream? Oh
Oh
no.
no, you've been found
The
out.
streams the streams that I watch. Oh no. Oh
you,
God,
you've
James,
been.
am I a gamer?
Oh
Say no.
no,
Please say
no,
no.
no.
Um, I don't know. I Jesus fucking Christ. I've spent like the entire like 90% of the day talking to my best friend about music, and it took me like this long to remember that I like music in my life. I'm I am a big music fan, predominantly hip hop, which I got into when I was 16 years old, so half my lifetime ago, and I'm exactly the kind of obnoxious hip hop fan. I have a post going on my Facebook where we're debating the greatest rappers of all time because of course I have that. I like just getting into long obnoxious conversations about that with anybody who can tolerate me. Um, and by the way, if y'all are into that, come to my stream, talk about it on my stream. I will absolutely pop off with opinions. I I'm currently watching through my doing like my third rewatch of The Sopranos on HBO Max. Not sponsored by HBO Max. Hashtag not sponsored. But HBO Max, call me. Um, I don't know. I like watching and listening to things, I guess, and then just like discussing them in depth with people, which it doesn't really. I'm not sure it counts as a hobby, but it's a thing that I do too much of.
That counts as a non-gaming
Um,
interest. That counts.
okay, perfect.
Let's talk about more of your speedrunning content.
I,
Which
okay.
which games have you actually speedrun so far?
So on my on specifically on my channel, I'm on my second speed game since the channel started. First I did The Last of Us Left Behind, which is a little like a little DLC side game, taking place in the kind of the middle of the first The Last of Us game. I'm currently speedrunning Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, just Kingdom Hearts 1, basically. Um, but I have plans to do all sorts of other games from there. I'm fairly sure that the next game I have my eye on when I finish Kingdom Hearts, by finish I mean like I get a good enough PB that I feel like I have a solid grasp of the fundamentals. Um, the next game I have my eye on is Pikmin 3. I want to return to The Last of Us and do. I want to learn both 1 and 2 at some point. I want to learn like how to speedrun all three of the Donkey Kong Country games because I love them. Um, I want to learn so many different speed games, and I don't want to grind for a world record in them, but I want to learn them and learn how to do them properly and get a solid run in, and yeah. So those are the two games I've done so far, but I have so many ideas for later games. And honestly, like I'm even open to like my viewers recommending speed games to me. And if I'm intrigued enough by the idea, I like the game, it's something I'm willing to talk about.
Is do you like just one type of speedrunning, or do you like is there other types of speedrunning that you like as far as randomizers or any percents or things like that?
Well, any percent runs are just a category of speed run. I tend I tend to favor speed runs that are like not heavily glitched runs. I mostly prefer runs that are not necessarily totally glitchless, but like they kind of look and feel like the playing the game normally. And a lot of the time, some games are so like wildly broken that you can just like do a speed run of the game. It's like you're playing a whole different game. People who know like Pokemon Red and Blue speed runs have seen like the any what the 80% run for that looks like, but it's like you do some wild menuing shit, and all of a sudden you hit the flag for the end of the game, and that's it. Game's over. Um, I like kind of doing speedruns where it feels like I'm playing the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like I'm playing the game. Um, um, I like. I guess I mostly focus on any percent leaning runs, although not necessarily exclusively. I like them because they're fast. Um, but again, I don't necessarily always do exclusively that. I dabble in other things. I actually like doing 100% type runs if they're like reasonable. For some games, like an any percent run will be 2 hours, a 100% run will be like 11 hours, and that's like I don't have that kind of energy in me. But um, I would potentially learn like an extra hour and a half's worth of stuff if I could do a 100% run. Um, and then randomizer. I think randomizer is fascinating. I actually got really into the Kingdom Hearts 2 randomizer last couple weeks, and I've streamed a fair bit of that. I love it a lot, and I would love to continue focusing on that from time to time.
Is there certain events that you speedrun for? I know there's one that you mentioned, the Insta Games Marathon for COVID relief. Talk about that one.
Yeah, so that's a charity marathon that a very nice Kingdom Hearts runner is hosting in 2 weeks. Today's Saturday, so 2 weeks from today, actually, I'll have my run in that marathon. But it's like a I don't know, it's like a 36 hour, just very concentrated marathon. Where a bunch of Kingdom Hearts runners are have volunteered to step up and contribute a run to try to raise some money for COVID relief. And I was asked to participate in that, and um, basically I ended up agreeing to contribute a run for a category that I had never touched before. Because like my whole thing is learning new speed games. I can learn a new category. It's fine. Um, so the category, my current speed game is Kingdom Hearts, and I usually do any percent. The category I'm going to be doing for this marathon is all worlds, where this is going to sound wild, but you go to all the worlds and you steal all the keyholes. It's a cool category. It's got some interesting new stuff and some cool changes from any percent. And actually, if I can promote myself a little bit, as
Sure.
soon as this stream is over, I'm going to be doing my first like legit official all worlds run on my stream, twitch.tv/ShiningEspeon. You should come check me out.
That's awesome. I like the
So
little wink that you did there.
I don't know what you're
I
talking
like it.
about.
I don't know what I'm talking about either. I think I just saw something out of the corner of my eye. No. Now we've done. See, now this marathon is in a couple weeks. There's a different marathon that you did, which was a Mario marathon, which is the beginning of 2021. You did a 3-game Mario marathon series. Talk about that. Talk about what led up to you wanting to do that, and talk about some highlights that your favorite moments of those.
So the Mario Marathon is a little bit different. The Kingdom Hearts Insta Games Marathon is a community coming together to run a marathon. Mario Marathon was just me being all, you know what, would be fun. Let me play through 3 games in one sitting one day. That'll be cool. So I'm like, okay, chat. Here's a if I can hit this many subscribers by the end of the month, I'll play through. I had picked up Super Mario 3D All Stars hashtag not sponsored for the Nintendo Switch. And I hadn't even played it before. And I just had the idea pop into my head like, what if I just completed all 3 of them, just played through all 3 of them at once. Not at once, but back to back.
Mm-hmm.
And I set a subscriber goal for my channel, and we met it. And so I did it. Um, and it was I've never speedrun any of those games, so it wasn't like I was coming in with a bunch of strats. I was just playing the games. Call it a speed walk. I was trying to play the games fast, but with like no strats. Um, went longer than I expected. It was very tiring, but it was also a lot of fun, and I love doing it. Um, so highlights from that. Um, um,
Just none.
Honestly, the the entirety of Super Mario Galaxy was kind of a highlight because like that game is just a blast to play all the way through. It was like almost as long as 64 and Sunshine put together, but it was just super fun all the way through. And I was a lot less familiar with Galaxy than the other 2 games, so it was like I was kind of like rediscovering Galaxy in a lot of places, and that was just a really good time. It was a great like finale to that marathon, even though I was up until like close to 6 a.m. finishing that game because it's a long game.
Wow, 6 a.m. to finish the game. That's dedication right there. But those games are super fun.
Look, I promised I was gonna complete the whole game card. I did.
Oh, there we go.
So, I
Talk
actually want
about.
to do more kind of like more events like that on my channel for like, if we can hit follow goals or subscriber goals or donation goals. I actually have a really fun one in mind for February. If we can hit hit a goal for by the end of January. I want to play through all three of the Donkey Kong Country games as a marathon because again, that's one of my favorite game series of all time, and I'd love just to power through all those games. So I'd say I have a follower goal right now. If I can get to like 200 followers before the end of January, yeah, I'll absolutely pick a day in early February and I'll marathon those three games.
That's awesome. Well, then you're gonna have a Mario marathon under your belt and uh, a Donkey Kong Country marathon under your belt. That's a couple long game series, and I'm excited to watch those. Excited to tune into those myself.
Actually, I'd like to do like legit like speed running marathons too. Like I want to I'm learning Kingdom Hearts 1 right now. I want to learn Kingdom Hearts 2 and I guess Kingdom Hearts 3 as well. And I'd like to do like a Kingdom Hearts trifecta run where I do like legitimate speed runs of all three back to back. I'd like to learn the Donkey Kong games, do legitimate speed runs of those. Like to do marathons that are actually focused on like doing full proper speed runs and not just more fast casual runs.
Now you've played a lot of different games, but there's three different games in real life that you've played that I've experienced playing with you as well. So I want to talk about those. Um,
Okay,
you've experienced playing Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic the Gathering.
that's
Let's
true.
talk a little bit briefly about each one of those games and your experiences with them. Discuss your Pokemon, your experience with Pokemon. Give it like a brief experience with that.
Like just what I've done with Pokemon.
What you've done with Pokemon from when you started to the collection that you built up, things like that.
So when I played Pokemon competitively, I wasn't like a top tier competitive player. I had some Battle Roads and City Championship wins. I had a top eight in a state championship, a top cut in a regional championship. Those are like my biggest competitive finishes in Pokemon. But I mean, it's something. Um, but the big thing I'm really known for in Pokemon, I'm known primarily for two things. I'm known for, at least I was known for being in charge of the Pokemon TCG community's biggest Facebook group. That is Burbank City on Facebook. I've been the admin for that group since 2014, um, and that has been an experience. And I also this I could talk about this for a million years. I'm going to give you the abridged version.
Hmm.
I also got super intensely into retro Pokemon, as I kind of alluded to before. Um, and I wanted to build a lot of different retro decks. I started out with wanting to just build decks that I remembered from when I played the game in like 2004, 2005. Um, and then I wanted to kind of like capture other big moments in Pokemon history that I missed out on. And that just kind of evolved into me wanting to build a living document of like the entire history of the Pokemon TCG, and it became this huge sprawling project where I wanted to like build like every notable Pokemon deck that had ever existed and just like learn about everything. And I really did a ton of research. I went back to old forum posts, I dug through them, I contacted players who hadn't played the game in 5, 10 years. I got old lists from them they'd never shared before. I built those lists with actual era appropriate cards, and I centralized a lot of this information and eventually started making it available to other players, and then a whole like retro Pokemon TCG community sprung out from that. Um, and I'm not the only one who was involved um, with retro Pokemon. Um, a friend of mine at the time, I guess I don't know if I should drop his full name here, but a friend of mine, a friend of mine, Jacob, was big in helping with all this. He contributed a lot of himself, and like Jason Klasinski, who was a 3-time Pokemon World Champion, contributed a lot of information. Kyle Sukovich, who was another extremely notable, one of the greatest Pokemon TCG players of all time, was big into developing a retro Pokemon scene. Jimmy Ballard, who was a former World's runner-up and uh, like a prominent Midwest tournament organizer. We had this small little community of retro Pokemon enthusiasts, and we would meet at events and play retro games together, and it just kind of grew. And now it's a fairly big like subculture in the Pokemon TCG community. But like, I would like to say that I was like the most prominently involved in doing like deep dives of research and building the most decks and really getting stuff out there.
Well, see, I've seen these decks in person, and there are a lot of them. Multiple duffel bags worth of decks, and you could grab a deck from any era and play this deck and see the deck that is concurrent to its time. That was very it was very overwhelming to look at, especially from someone like me who hasn't played all of those decks before. You know what? There's some obscure title on this deck, and I didn't even know that was a Pokemon. I don't know, but there was so many decks, and it probably took so long to put together. But that's a really awesome thing that you did, and I think you finished that at one point, right? Or maybe you were very close.
Yeah, it was intended to be an ongoing project. Just I would keep adding new formats to that once those formats had fully rotated as standard. But I eventually ended my involvement with that project.
Well, let's since you ended your involvement in that project, let's end the topic of Pokemon. Let's go to Yu-Gi-Oh. Talk about your experience with Yu-Gi-Oh when you started, and kind of some tournaments that you were in, or how you met how you met my brother, or and me. Just talk about your kind of journey through Yu-Gi-Oh.
Well, I'll skip past my time in Yu-Gi-Oh. Like I got into Yu-Gi-Oh when like literally the very first starter decks came out. Like um before even Metal Raiders had dropped, like brand new entry level Yu-Gi-Oh. And I played it fairly steadily from there up through about early 2006, not 16, 2006. And I played fairly competitively. I tried to like actually learn to be a good player. Um, the first time I started like really learning how to play the game well was when Invasion of Chaos dropped. Um, and I built a Chaos deck, but like I didn't feel like I was good enough to beat better players in Chaos Control mirrors. So I started like metagaming against my local metagame at the Books a Million in the Sawgrass Mall in South Florida, and so I built Gravekeepers, which at the time were fairly respectable because Necro Valley just like gave Chaos a pretty hard time. And back then the idea was like if you could stick a Necro Valley and then just drop like a Gravekeeper's Assailant, like nothing in Chaos could really beat you. Like they could try to out the Necro Valley, but if you could just make that thing stick, you kind of just like cut them off at the knees and you could usually win those games. And that was like the first time I started really thinking tactically about TCG. And then I kind of kept learning from there. But fast forward, I got back into the game in early 2015. Um, and I started going to locals fairly regularly. First, I was at the Game Academy, which is no longer in business. RIP to a real one.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also Cool Stuff. Um, and it was at the Game Academy where I met your brother Jesse. And I mean, Jesse's a great person, and we got along well, and we bonded because we were both playing Necros, um, which is one of my favorite decks in the history of the game. It's great. And then I just kind of kept playing from there. And I only really went to locals once the Game Academy closed down. I just went to Cool Stuff to play Yu-Gi-Oh. I tried to go to regionals, I only really I managed to get to one. It was kind of hard to coordinate that. I never got around to going into a YCS, but I at least took the local scene seriously. Um, I wanted to do well at the local scene. I eventually got there. I feel like I hit a point where I was reasonably respected player in that scene. I don't know, the game is so hard, but I hit a point where I felt like I kind of knew what I was doing enough to consistently top.
I think that's where we spent the most time playing the same game together, is when we both played Yu-Gi-Oh. We played
Oh yeah,
I believe we played Sky Strikers for the longest time together and feeding off of each other's decks and things like that. That was a really fun time.
summer 2018. I think about it a lot. It was wonderful.
Summer of 2018, was that the same year that we played? What was that deck that we played? The one that
Oh,
had Fairy Tale Snow in it.
oh no.
Was that that deck?
Our Shiranui Synchro deck. No, that
Yes.
was actually October of 2016. That was ABC format. I didn't like the ABC deck. I didn't like the way it played. I thought it was too clunky. Um, and it wasn't doing fancy enough things for my tastes because dropping a 3,000 attack monster that can banish shit for basically free was not good enough for me. And we took one of Bobby's inventions. It was he had created a 54 card Lightsworn Shiranui deck, and you were playing it, and I'm like, well, this seems really cool. I love what you're doing. You couldn't pay me to play 54 cards at any point in a deck, so I'm like, if we can take this thing and cut it down to 40 cards with an Upstart Goblin, thank you very much. I'm interested. And by God, we did it.
It was great. It was
We trimmed
great.
that thing down to 40 cards, and I was convinced that was the best deck in the format, and I was wrong.
What was the? I don't remember the best deck in that format was, but but it feels.
It was probably just ABC.
And then shortly after that, you kind of started playing Magic, or was it during around the same time?
No, no, Magic was 2019. It was March of 2019 because my at the time girlfriend is a longtime Magic fan, and she wanted to play Commander with me, so we got Commander decks and we started building them together. And then she wanted to play Standard. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go with it. So we built Standard decks, and then I was like, hey, what about Modern though? And then I wanted to play Modern because I'm a tryhard. Um, what actually really got me was I loved the card Arclight Phoenix. Um, and I really wanted to play Arclight Phoenix, but the Standard Is It Phoenix deck was just not that good. But it was the best deck in Modern. And I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take the standard version, and I'm gonna convert it and play the Modern version instead. And it took some doing. I had to find the money for it. But once I got the money together, I played that deck, and that was a good time. Um I miss them. I miss Modern Arclight Phoenix terribly. Hashtag unban Faithless Looting, you cowards. Um, Faithless Looting did nothing wrong. I'll die on this hill. Hot take.
Hot
But
take.
but yeah, no, that was how I kind of got rolling in Magic.
I remember the Serum Visions, Metamorphose. I remember sitting in a Denny's
Oh
playing
yeah.
against that and dying like by turn 3 or something like that to a flipped thing in the ice, and it was just
Well,
terrible.
the very first time we played against it, you were playing Tron, I was playing as a Phoenix, and the very first time I got a turn 2 Pyromancer Ascension, and then it was
Hmm.
active on turn 3. And what Pyromancer Ascension does essentially is if you can activate it, every time you play a spell, an instant or a sorcery, it copies the effect of that. So like you lightning bolt your opponent's face, it sends another lightning bolt to your opponent's face. You play a Manamorphose, make a mana, draw a card. You get to do that again for free. So now you have like bonus mana, and I just like comboed off with that card. I think I had Pyromancer Ascension live to double all my spells, and then I cast a Finale of Promise, which
I remember
is
that.
the dumbest interaction in the world because Finale of Promise, what it does is it chooses 2 cards from your graveyard with a restriction based on mana cost. We'll just simplify it. It chooses one instant and one sorcery from your graveyard and casts both of them. So Pyromancer Ascension copies any instant or sorcery you cast. So what that means is Finale of Promise, play it, choose an instant, choose a sorcery, and you're gonna copy them. Pyromancer Ascension then copies not only the instant and the sorcery that you're casting off of Finale of Promise, but also the Finale of Promise itself. So you get to pick another instant, another sorcery, which are also then copied. So you get 8 spells for the cost of 1 card, And it just if you resolve that and lose the game, like God help you.
I remember honestly thinking that you were cheating. I was like, there's no way it's casting this many spells. Can you repeat that again? I think I spent about 30 minutes trying to go over the convoluted thing you were doing.
You're like, no, listen, Kara, you're new to this game. You're just misunderstanding. This isn't Yu-Gi-Oh. I'm like, oh no, my friend, this is Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yu-Gi-Oh is more vintage Magic than it is modern, but I think you could beat any vintage deck with that interaction. It was awesome. So
That was a really good time.
we talked about your we talked about how competitive you were in these different games, but let's just talk favorites here. What's your favorite Pokemon card, your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card, and your favorite Magic card?
My favorite Pokemon card is Macargo from EX Deoxys, released in 2005. There's two different Macargo in the set. This is Macargo number 20. It has the Smooth Over Poke Power, which once per turn lets you choose any card from your deck and then shuffle your deck and put that card that you chose on top. So you guarantee that that's your next draw. That's my favorite card for myriad reasons, partly due to nostalgia from back in the day, partly due to memes, but I love that card. I have a whole collection of just a bunch of copies of that card. I have a tattoo of that card art on my leg, which I would show you if it didn't involve me having to stand up and pull up my pant leg awkwardly. So just take my word for it.
We'll take your word.
Follow my Twitter and I'll post a picture of it later.
Okay.
So that's my favorite Pokemon card. And that's why Macargo is one of my favorite Pokemon. Also, Macargo's baby.
And what is your favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card?
I apologize in advance.
Oh no.
To longtime Yu-Gi-Oh fans.
Oh no.
My favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card is Yatagarasu.
Oh, the podcast has ended right now.
Which is one of the first cards that was ever banned. By which I mean it was on the first ever US ban list. They banned like 8 cards or so. But Yatagarasu was among those cards banned. It's this humble little card. It's a little bird with 300 attack. But if it inflicts damage to your opponent skips their next draw phase. And Yatagarasu is the card that helped me learn how to be good at Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I couldn't understand why that card was a secret rare, but I figured it's a secret rare and it has a lot of text on it, so there must be a reason for it. Because, early secret rare, sure, Trihorn Dragon is never a good card. But, like, Jinzo is a secret rare. That was a good card. And so this was in the later era when secret rares had started to be good. And I'm like, there's no way that this card that looks bad is actually bad if it's a secret rare. It's gotta be worth something. And I studied that card and I thought about it and I researched it and I found out, oh, this card actually just like locks your opponent out of playing the game a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that changed how I thought about the game, and that's what really got my interest in playing Yu-Gi-Oh competitively, and by extension, TCGs competitively. That really fired that interest up.
So could you say that little baby bird at Yatagarasu,
baby bird Yata,
fueled your desire to play games in general? Card games.
Yatagarasu 100% is responsible for my decision, my interest in playing TCGs competitively. 100%. If any card's responsible, it's motherfucking Yatagarasu. Apologies to Yu-Gi-Oh fans.
And if you've played Yu-Gi-Oh, or maybe if you haven't played Yu-Gi-Oh and you don't know what Yatagarasu is, definitely look it up. It is one of the most iconic cards in Yu-Gi-Oh history, and for bad reason. It's not even a good reason. For bad reason.
Yeah, no. Also, I love Yatagarasu was in the anime on one episode. I'll always remember it because again, Yatagarasu is this iconic, just universally feared card, and in the anime, I'm dating myself here, but in the anime, Noah summoned it in his duel against Kaiba, and Yatagarasu did exactly nothing, and at the end of the turn, returned to Noah's hand because it's a spirit monster, and that's what they do, and that was the only thing it did. It just popped up, hi, here I am, I'm a bird, didn't attack, didn't lock Kaiba's draw step, did nothing, just little cameo. I summoned Yatagarasu, and then Yatagarasu came back, and he said, and I quote, "Good bird." And that was it.
The developers had to get Yatagarasu in there somewhere.
Like it was yesterday.
They needed to get it in the anime somewhere. They didn't need to do anything. They didn't want to hype the card too much before it came out. Um, what is your?
It's out by then.
It was out by then, yeah. What is your favorite
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering card?
Speaking of good birds, Arclight Phoenix.
Oh yes,
For
we talked
reasons I
about that.
basically already said.
Wow, yeah. Well,
Actually, Arclight Phoenix has pretty similar stats to Yatagarasu. Is Yata 200, 300, or 300, 200? I think it's 200,
I
300, but I
don't
don't
remember, but
remember.
we can look it up. um,
No, no, the point is, it's just a cool card, part of my favorite Magic deck of all time. And I played it modern. It made me happier than anything else that's ever made me. I played it in standard many times, and it only ever brought me pain and regret.
Speaking of pain and regret, this is a perfect
Oh
segue.
no.
Perfect segue.
Oh
What
god.
kind of setbacks did you learn the most from in streaming, or maybe in card games, or just in your life in general that you learned the most from?
That is a complicated question. Holy shit. What setbacks did I learn the most from? Um, I mean, I've had a lot of setbacks in one direction or another. Um, I'll kind of answer this in parts.
Hmm.
Um, because like kind of a big part of how I got into this position in the first place was due to a couple of big setbacks. Um, I I had a fairly big setback in my personal life earlier this year that led to me deciding to relocate to a different city away from where I've lived for a long time. Um, that and that kind of put me in a position where I was in a new city without like in the middle of a pandemic, without like a lot of like without people I knew around me, a lot without a lot of things to do, and that put me in a position where hey, I have a lot of free time. That kind of served as a springboard to me streaming. So that was kind of born of a setback. I had a setback with a job I had, which was a good job because it was a job that I could work remotely while I'm living with somebody who is immunocompromised, again, during a pandemic. And then I had a setback there. That job was unable to keep me for the next several months. So I just kind of that kind of ended up with me throwing more resources into streaming and hoping for the best. Um, and then of course a big thing in speedrunning is setbacks. Um, so like if you're doing a run, um, you could mess up a strat. I mean, even when you're a really seasoned runner at a game, like nothing's perfect. You can you can screw up things out of nowhere. Like even the absolute top tier best runners in the world make some of the most horrendous mistakes you'll ever see. Um, I watched a world record holder several years ago doing a run of Twilight Princess who made just a little error, but it cost him 10 minutes of his run, which is a tremendous loss. But the big thing is like, you know, if you're doing a speed run, you got to learn to roll with a setback, find another approach, um, find a backup strat, do something to salvage as much of the run as you can. Um, and some runners, especially ones who are really pushing the world record grind, they hit a big enough setback, they'll just say, okay, let's just start from scratch. They'll start a fresh run and go from there. And I, respect that a lot. Obviously, I respect the world record grind, but a big thing I do in my own stream, I guess, is I focus a lot more on trying to finish all my runs. Um, and so that's something I guess I'm confronted with a lot, because if I have a big setback during one of my runs, I don't commonly kill that run. I usually find a way to keep going, find a backup strat, find a way to kind of push through. So I'm feel like I'm giving a very stream of consciousness answer to a more thought provoking question. My apologies, but I guess a big thing is sometimes with setbacks there is another like there's another angle you can improvise, you can adapt in real time, you can find another way around to keep going, to preserve some of your momentum. And I just mean this in a more global sense. Like in TCGs, you can make a big glaring misplay in the middle of the tournament, but if you play it off as something intentional, sometimes you can galaxy brain your opponent into thinking that you're operating on some other level, and then it gets in their head, and then they make a mistake, and then you can kind of find an opening to get back your tempo. Um, in speedrun, sometimes you make a mistake and you find a good backup strat and save as much time as possible. In life, sometimes a setback puts you in a position to see a new opportunity that you can jump on. So sometimes you have to learn how to roll with a setback and capitalize on it, and keep going from there. And sometimes you also have to know when to, kind of recognize that you know, maybe this particular thing isn't working for you. You got to shift to something else.
And I think that works. That logic works with not just games. It works with real life as well. When you have a setback,
I hope so.
another maneuver that maybe is unexpected, or it'll force you to think about it in a different way. Um, if you have a setback with a job, like you mentioned, or a setback with
Or like
even a personal relationship.
academically, um,
Mm-hmm.
I I have a master's degree in mathematics. I tried a couple separate times to get a PhD in mathematics, and I just kind of couldn't quite make it work. My ADHD at the time was undiagnosed, and I think constantly about whether I had been like properly treated and was dealing with it properly, whether that would change things. But that's beside the point. I hit a point in the middle of my second PhD attempt where I just decided that it was that the degree was no longer worth the stress and the struggle that I was putting into it. And that was an instance of a setback where I just decided to cut my losses and pursue other things, find something else that might be more fulfilling, might make me happier.
And in a in
So
a
sometimes setbacks you gotta roll with them and improvise. Sometimes you just have to learn when to walk away.
in a macro perspective, in a global perspective, that's the thing you learn from it, right? Sometimes you just have to walk away.
Right. A lot of time you can improvise and you can turn a setback, if not into something better, at least something salvageable. But sometimes walking away is okay too.
I love that.
That's a rambling ass answer to an insightful question, but that's what you get out of ShiningEspeon.
I think the streamers and people that want to learn about streamers that listen to this podcast will take a lot of value out of that. So I really like the way you said that. Speaking of that, what are some of your streaming or content creation goals in a macro sense?
Um, One of my big goals that I really want to get to is I really want to hit a point where I'm able to start putting out YouTube content along with my Twitch content. Um, I really want to put out like information on like tutorials, like a nice centralized place for tutorials for runs that I've done. There are other places that there are other sources for tutorials, but I want to still put out my own perspective on things that I've learned on my own that I haven't seen people talk about, and I want to kind of get in a position where I'm doing that ideally I'd like to do that for every game I speedrun.
That'll be awesome.
like a beginner friendly tutorial, not just focusing on how to do the game optimally, but just how to do the game passively. You know, beginner friendly strats, backup strats if something goes wrong, things like that.
That's
Um,
awesome.
that's one of my big content creation goals. And obviously, you know, I for another big goal for Twitch is I want my channel to grow. I want to hit a point where, you know, I want to be more recognized in the communities that I participate in. I want to be would like to hit partner at some point. I've got a ways to go. I just barely hit affiliate in December, but still, like, I want to hit partner. I want to just keep climbing, um and I want to create a space that's very I want to create a space that's very well known as a space that you can go to, you can ask questions, you you can learn from the stream in real time, and just a place where you will be just, you know, immediately welcomed and embraced.
Now, how can
So
everyone
I
find
want to
you
have that reputation.
on your social media platforms? How can everyone find you?
Um, so you can find me on Twitter at ShiningEspeon3. I mentioned having a favorite number. At ShiningEspeon was taken by someone else who hasn't touched their Twitter in like 7 years. RIP me. But you can find me on at ShiningEspeon3. I'm also on Instagram, just at ShiningEspeon. Although I haven't used my Instagram that much yet, but you can still follow me. I'll eventually start posting stuff there too. I'm gonna make a Facebook fan page as well. That you can like and get updates that way. But the big thing right now is Twitter, and of course my Twitch.
And your Twitch doesn't have the three, correct? It's the
My
twitch.tv/ShiningEspeon.
Twitch is just Shining Espeon. Yep,
Perfect. Well,
the
thank you
original.
so much, Kara, Shining Espeon, for taking the time to come on the show. I was super excited to have you on, especially knowing you in real life as well, not just the internet. It's been a pleasure having you. Seriously, super excited to do this with you.
Yeah, this is super fun, James. I loved it.
All right, so we will see you, and thank you everyone for joining the Streamcast today, and we will see you for the next Streamcast in 1 week.